a regular meeting. The regular meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Orleans is called to order. Present, our quorum consisting of Ms. Van Giesen, Mr. Mulligan, Mr. Taub, myself, the chair, Michael P. Marek, and George Warr. There were two items on the agenda for this evening. It appears that at least I'm responsible for not having overseen the publication of the notice so that it was done with in a sufficient timely way. So as a result, I have had communication, not with myself, not with any of the applicants, but at least one person, and received correspondence from at least one person who was interested in case number 2115. The substance of that communication was that the registered mail was just recently had been received, and there was a complaint that there really wasn't enough notice to prepare for, to determine what their position was going to be in connection with the application. To solve the problem, I have directed the renotice. I intend to continue those two hearings till July 17th, which is the next regular meeting, and there'll be a republication in the newspaper. If anyone, I don't know who you folks are, whether you were the applicants or otherwise, but I have to do that because if you got the relief that you were looking for, or you didn't get the relief you're looking for, there's a deficiency in the procedure.
Okay.
So that was as soon as the interest the interest is to deal with all applications as promptly. So they usually put it in the pipeline, or they're invariably put in the pipeline correctly. In this case, there was an error in it for which I am responsible. I don't know how the hearings will go on the 17th. We wait to see what the evidence is, but I can say that there was at least one member who said, was discussing the possibility of something we haven't done since I've been on the board, and that is to have an August meeting. In case we don't finish any of the hearings, we'll consider an August hearing so that people's plans don't get too far delayed. So I apologize to you.
So, sir, is there, if I come back on the 17th at your next scheduled meeting, and our abutters are happy and you're feeling you've received sufficient or no complaints from them or what have you, it hopefully can be dealt with that night?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
All right.
I don't know which case is which, but the people I spoke with were in case 2115, and I had a discussion, the substance of which is
Right.
you could find the information you need down the building department that, generally speaking, we always recommend if the question arises,
Right.
that people talk with each other. Since then, I received a letter of objection to the notice, and then a subsequent email, which I'll put in the record, which said something to the effect that we spoke with the applicant and we're okay.
Well, that's what you weren't in the room yet, but I said to the other gentleman, it's our backyard neighbor, and he came over and asked for the plans, and this doesn't help you with your decision because it's not procedural, but I gave him the plans. He happens to be an architect himself. And he looked over everything and just came back and said, oh, it looks fine. I just wanted to make sure the roof wasn't, a roof line wasn't in my view. So, but you have to procedurally hear from him, I understand that.
Well, I kind of did already.
Oh, you did already, okay,
I mean,
okay.
I'll put that email. I mean, I said, all right, well, it didn't make it, now all of a sudden,
Just because he
I-
says to us it's okay, that doesn't
So,
help.
so what happened is what I wanted to happen, what I couldn't fix, I couldn't fix as the chairman of the board, is the
Yeah, the
failure of the notice. And I never really would have known of what the publication date was,
Yeah.
because these folks happened to be concerned about the shortness of the.
I understand.
Did any correspondence go out to either the engineer or the applicant that the meeting would not be given tonight?
There was, I don't know, David Little was involved in one or the other of these, I don't know which one,
First one.
Ours.
both.
He was on both of them.
And I didn't speak with him, the board secretary did, and the feedback was, he was delighted that he could do something else on the 3rd of July, rather than be here, so.
So were we.
Okay.
I guess I would ask respectfully that you guys would hopefully come on the 17th, so.
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations.
All right.
That'd be all we have. We will definitely be there.
Very well,
All righty.
thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Then, the other item which I did carry forward was the.
Let me ask you a question
Yes,
first. Basically, you're saying that both of these now are postponed
2 weeks,
2 weeks?
Yes.
Okay.
and we'll publish again.
So I think the only thing on the emails that I got indicated the first one was, but not the second.
That's right. Now, what we expected to do was, and now we're in a new fiscal year, is to elect officers. In this case, we have 3, the chair, vice chair, and the clerk. Thank you. This became a little complicated because the Board of Selectmen was considering this evening whether or not to, what their pleasure would be concerning my term. I went upstairs. I saw that it was number 4, and there was they started to talk about whether I should be on the board at all, and I finally was able to get Mr. Runyon's attention, and so I did. I spoke with the board. And the upshot, the executive summary of this is that I was reappointed for 2 years. I explained the situation, and this is not to influence any election, but I explained the situation of the culture of the board. And that is that my predecessor, and I think that perhaps previous chairs had prepared the decisions themselves. So that meant that since I've been chair for a long, long time, no one else except Bill McCarthy once or twice, and maybe Beth, and during her incumbency, might have written the decisions. And we never had, there never would be, I explained, there never would be a written procedure of training other board members to write decisions. I said the upshot of that would be that if you don't reappoint me, then you're going to end up with a board which would be hampered by the lack of any chair or really any member who'd been familiar with, except for Mr. Warr, I mentioned, with the procedure and technique of writing decisions, which would withstand scrutiny by the Superior Court or the Land Court. So I think the original intention was to renew my term, except that as an associate member, because that's the policy that we never really, we knew was lurking out there on the term limits. So
They were asking you, basically, this was the issue of you've been here now for 3 terms, and they didn't want to re-up you.
that's it.
Okay.
That's it. And I'm sorry, I meant to bring that policy along.
I understand, no, I understand.
And I had been alerted to this by a retired member of the select board. And he spoke with me privately at some meeting and said, you know, you gotta deal with this, you know, because you can't, or no one can stay in these boards for a long, long time. I expressed to the select board that I understood that when I first came on the board, and even as I started to act as chairman. There's, sooner or later, there's gotta be a rotation, except for one thing, that one year led to another, and now there's a specialized knowledge and skill that's developed that I haven't trained other members of the board to do. And I think that I said, I recognize, and maybe you know this, that in other municipalities, the decision-writing policies responsibilities are rotated amongst the members of the board. Now, I think the select board kind of like the idea of doing something like that, but to make a long story short, I think I would have had a 3-year term. If they've only done it for 2, that's kind of the handwriting's on the wall. So in view of that, and I explained that absolutely I have complete confidence in any member of the board, present or not present, of having the experience and intelligence to be able to act as chair in every respect and to write the decisions. There's no question about that. The real problem is the learning curve may be a little steep at first. So that's what happened. So I'm in for another 2 years.
So we're stuck with you.
You are. And I don't know what you have in mind for an election, but I'm willing to continue because of what I told the select board and what I tell you, that I can do the writing. And sometimes it's tedious. I know I've got to write a variance opinion, for example, that not all of some of the decisions can be drafted by the board secretary, but not all of them. And they still have to be carefully scrutinized and they're done in a prompt way. We've been able to do that for a long, long time. But I have no problem in working with some of the members of the board who might show some interest in the decision writing to help out and guide and provide the materials which Mr. Osterberg gave to me to explain how to write a decision that's a good one. And all of us, I think, can run the meeting. I think you've all been in enough meetings to be able to do that, to perpetuate the culture which was always here, that to listen and invite and to preserve the dignity of the process and convince people that the right thing is being done, even if they're not happy with it. So that's my long story. I felt a bit embarrassed to have to speak to the select board that way, because the question was playing out, well, are you going to do something now that's going to affect the election here, or should we? They want to know. Well, have somebody go down and see what they do, and then report to us so that we know what to do. But that's the way they fixed it. So anyone wants to be chair, that's fine with me. And I can say that I would train. Need a vice chair too.
Well, I'll make a motion to, I nominate you to serve as chairman for the coming year.
Second,
Very well. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Ms. Van Giesen, would you be willing to continue as the clerk?
Yes.
Very well. Then I make a motion, and I nominate Emily Van Giesen as the clerk of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
all right?
And opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Ms. Van Giesen.
Thank you.
We need a vice chair. I think that Matt, he's been vice chair at least one stint, maybe two. I think he's an associate member now.
Mhm.
This is what they had on their list.
Has he been here for 9 years too, or?
He's been here. He
A
has.
long time.
Yeah. But he's an associate member, so it,
So that,
So
well,
they
I
would
was,
have
I
the
was
same-
an
they would-
associate member
they would
when you
have-
voted me in court.
right, but then somebody stepped down to make, to.
But we
manip-
couldn't vote him back
We
up.
manipulated the board.
Mm.
That I think it was Matt that was stepped out. Or maybe it was
No.
Bill, I'm not really sure who it
No, I
was.
think Beth
Okay.
left.
Okay. We need a vice chair.
Well, is Matt the vice chair now?
No, Bill
No,
was.
Bill. Can we nominate Matt, or we can't nominate Matt, is what you're saying?
We can, but then we'd have to manipulate. I don't know that he would.
He's not
He
here.
should have been here. That's some,
The other thing,
My
the
thought
only
is-
full member left is Jerry, right?
Jerry, yeah.
So you lose.
the vice chair is of some consequence because the vice chair would run or facilitate the meetings in the absence of the chair. Otherwise, there's no additional duties. Bill McCarthy was able to do that during the winter months, because if I weren't around for 2 or 3, 4 weeks or so. And then Beth also did it, even though she didn't have a position. I know that you're not around from January through April anyway. So,
Well, actually, you could actually have an appointed vice chair, and as you just indicated, if that person doesn't show up, you could indicate who would be.
I usually, that's what I've usually done, to make sure somebody could run the meeting. So would you, I nominate Mr. Mulligan to be vice chair. Unless, second by Mr. Top. All those in favor?
We want to have
Aye.
a discussion first.
Is there
It's a terrible idea, no.
No.
I think it's a terrible idea.
I'm sorry, I apologize for my flipness.
No, but I made the motion, but I didn't mean to exclude you from the consideration, or Mr. Waugh. for
No,
that
no, no,
matter.
no, I only was noting the fact that prior, after the nomination and the second, normally there's a call for any discussion, and following that, the call for a vote, and an automatic pilot, with apologies to the chair, not hearing the call
No, no.
for any discussion, I went.
No, ordinarily I would, and I'm going to
So I
ask for any
apologize.
discussion. Is there any discussion? Then all those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed, then congratulations.
Thank you.
Sir.
I should have stayed home.
Could I ask,
I-
is the issue of the training people to write the reports, if we don't address that now, 2 years from now, unless we're assuming that the vice chair is going to step into that role, I
Well-
wonder what, or if we want to do anything about that.
Well, see, that's the organizational problem here, because there isn't a lockstep. If we haven't had that, in some organizations, you, as vice chair, would succeed, or would be an understanding. We've never done that, we've never had any lobbying outside, we've always had, since I've been on the board, we've had these discussions have come right at the meeting. So it's very hard to determine who would be interested.
I think Mr. Todd's point is we should start rotating the decision
I-
writing.
And
I
I would
think-
like to learn how to write.
I
I think
think,
that's a good idea.
I think I will. Now, I'll tell you, there are templates.
Right.
There are templates so that the board secretary knows enough of how to do it. And I've developed the templates so that they deal with the 14 factors that you have for a special permit. And using those categories, then you add in the evidence that's adduced at the hearing.
I've written a lot of them, okay, and basically what would happen is I would write them before the meeting even was held. Seriously, because it's a template.
Well, so have I.
Yeah, you just
So-
go back over, take a
so
look
have
at the
I.
case and see how it fits in, then give it to the secretary, and then she finalizes
So
them and
have
you're
I.
free.
And
It's not brain science.
No, and there's another way of doing it, and it's done quite commonly, and they certainly did it on the North Shore when I was practicing in that area, is that the zoning boards would ask the draft to come from the people who are looking for the relief. That way, you know that it's going to be, it would be sufficient, because they're the ones who would have the stake in making sure that it's enforceable
And
eventually.
then some of the real big tough ones, the guys like Dewey Landreth, we'd ask him to do it, be more than happy. So that also helped.
And that's what Bill McCarthy said they did in Boston, where his principal practice was, which is,
Some of the pro se people, I'm not sure that that's a burden
No.
that would be fair to impose
No.
on them, but.
no, it isn't, but I think that we'll start to do that. And that will give me something to do in August, to set up some kind of a system or a manual. Which will be generic, so that there's no, never any suggestion that we have set something up which it doesn't fit in with the actual genre of having a hearing. But that's the way, I know that the template which I adopted from Mr. Osterberg was a successor from your work and your board, and I've added in other the questions, whether, I've always just said, there's some of it self-serving, for example, that at the very beginning, recognizing that notice was properly given, and, and adding at the request, I think, of Amber Dauphiné, that if no one objected, that was always reflected too. That's kind of an important thing.
Do you oversee the publication, or does Amber do that?
Amber does.
And you look at, you sort of implied that it was your fault, that you,
No, I was just taking the hit.
I know, yeah,
Okay.
but you don't actually do anything in terms of reviewing
No,
what she
no.
does.
No, I taught her how to do it, though.
Yeah.
I taught her how to do it, and she picked that up right away. She's certainly able.
Yeah. Well, I think the idea of rotating them, and I think the idea is a good idea. I think the idea of expecting council to bring in a draft is a good idea too.
Okay. And if it comes to something sophisticated like a 40B, I'll do that for sure. And I'll do the variance decision that I said I would do.
Well, you can
And-
still do your share of all of them. I'm not looking to spread more work to everybody, but I
Well, I
think,
understand that, but I can also, I can always ask. Or maybe to prepare the draft and to circulate it to one member to review in a cycle, so that way.
That's a good-
Emily will see them all because she signs off on them. But the technique is another thing altogether. I'm not saying there's a mystique to it. I think that what the chair has to learn is how to manage the flow of the meeting, but anyone can eventually do that. There are patterns to that. A long time ago, I set up a procedure for that too. And so I would like, I'm thinking that it would be the best for the board is for, now that I'm elected for another year, to act as chair for another year, and then to retire for a year and watch somebody else do it and guide. I think that would be ideal. So that means that would use my last 2-year term. Because no question, they weren't gonna go any further than that. And at least the chair really didn't want to hear me at all.
Can I ask a question? How many members do we have now?
We have 7.
We have 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bill McCarthy's retirement
Right.
created one.
So we have,
Oh, wait,
we have 5 permanents, and what do we?
Just think now.
So it's actually 7, there's 5 of us
So
and
7.
Jablon and.
The 7, yeah, Javelin and Cole are missing. So we have 7 out of the 8, that's right.
So, Mr. Chairman, I know for a fact that Mr. McCarthy would reconsider his decision, but felt a little shy about it. And I told him that myself, I didn't see why that would be an issue. He'd have to come back as an associate member or whatever that is, but that's his preference.
That never bothered him. I mean, he was always, he told me that many times. He said, I'll step down just to help someone else become.
So, all I'm saying in that regard is if we're looking for old new blood as opposed to new blood, I trust he would appreciate it, actually, is what I think.
Well, I'd be delighted to have him on board.
Is there only 7 because they don't have any other applicants?
Yes, there's no applicants in the queue. I told the board, I said that we're in good shape because for a long, long time, there were vacancies, but we have 4 years now with, I said, and I told them, I said, the problem is the regulars were not retiring and the associates were never really moving up, and the only way that the associates would be properly recognized is the procedure that we have of rotating for quorums to make sure that everyone has a chance to be involved in the 5, even though everyone asks and everyone considers and everyone contributes. I mean, that's the charm of the board, is because you get different opinions and they're explored correctly. And they're explored correctly with the people who are out there.
The charm of the board. The charm of the board, that was noteworthy. And let the record reflect the charm of the board. We like it. It's something wrong with us, Mr. Chairman.
So that's,
Could I bring up another topic?
Yes.
Totally different,
yeah.
completely different. It's goes back to the discussion about the water, the health departments putting, whoever it was, I think it was probably the health department putting that standard on us to make that decision. And I think what it seems to me that I don't want to get into statutory interpretation, but it seems to me that whoever came up with that didn't think it through very well, because it didn't give us standards upon which we could apply. And so we reverted to our own standards, which is the zoning standards, which will never make sense in the health department regulation. So if the standards are the zoning board standards, then there's no occasion when someone's seeking relief pursuant to that bylaw can get relief. And when I asked the fellow from the health department why it's on us, he said basically, well, because you guys are in the relief business. You know, basically is what he said. You're in the relief business, so we stuck it on you.
Yeah, if the truth be known, that was probably less than candid, because certainly the Board of Health can make findings and decisions too. You provoked at 2 years ago that review, which eventually was carried through town meeting, through the zoning bylaw task force, and we will lever this discussion through there.
Okay, it just,
Because
it seems,
Because the planning board and the task force won't finesse that unless I bring it forward and say, look, there are members of the board who have difficulty with or objections to the zoning board dealing with that question when there are.
well, at a minimum, I think you, I mean, whoever put that, I guess it was I don't know who supported that.
It probably were kind of planning board.
It was probably the planning board. So the
Yeah.
planning board was, the whole purpose was that to encourage dense development, denser development in the downtown area, get a vibrant downtown. And they had this issue and they wanted to give somebody relief, and they stuck it on us. It doesn't fit with us. So I think we should go back at a minimum and say to them, you know, this doesn't work with us. So if you're looking for relief, somebody to give relief to this, it should be either somebody else, or you should have clear standards that we should apply. But you can't apply our standards to that bylaw.
No.
They don't, it doesn't work.
I think so. That's the consensus of the board.
I'm not sure I
I'm not sure
understand
either.
the question to some degree, because I think what we're talking about basically is anything in town that requires a special permit or is a deviant from any existing standard seems to automatically go to the zoning board of appeals. That's the job.
But then you look in and you gotta have, is it because of the land, this is
That's
just,
a variance.
Yeah.
yeah.
And a variance has to be specific to some feature of the land, be it water course, outcropping, or whatever. But, you know, and if that's what the issue is, the zoning board of appeals would have to determine that's a valid concern with respect to that criteria.
But that's never gonna be the issue with these water things. It's never gonna be because of land, it's gonna be because, because of the process they have of removing
Then
nitrogen.
you go to planning, you go to the town meetings where it's voted on, you go to the public hearings that are held, and make your point that it shouldn't be done by the ZBA. It should be done by-
That's what I'm saying tonight, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, okay.
That's my whole point.
But that's nothing
We-
you're gonna change here, you can make the
No.
general picture.
All I'm saying is we should go on record to say it doesn't, either doesn't belong here, or it should be changed.
I can do that. I mean, I've acted as, just ex officio on the zoning bylaw task force. So, and they appreciate a lot of the stuff they talk about, really, I think we are probably indifferent to. But
Sure.
there are, but there are idiosyncrasies that have been created inadvertently, and this is one of them, and that can be fixed, but I bring that, and I did that before, at Mr. Mulligan's insistence, and it worked out just fine, because we had an awful time dealing with, the two Superior Court cases came out of that, I think.
There's 30,000,
Yeah.
30,000
Yeah.
foot.
I was on
Yeah.
the zoning
Well-
bylaw task force also, and as an ex-ZBA member, they would require you to make the comments, is this something that should be handled by the zoning board of appeals? So that was the opportunity to try to make it done properly, as I saw fit being a board member.
Right.
So-
Right, well, and I'm eager to say that, but on the other hand, that doesn't justify the appropriateness, just because we're in the business of being able to conduct hearings, and there isn't, like, no other agency or board in the town can do, we can do it. But as a result, it isn't just this. There are other things that are stuck in the zoning bylaw where we're permitting stuff that, we might not have any business doing. The question is, can we do, is it appropriate because we know how to do hearings and the planning board has a bigger picture. I've always admired the planning board because it had the bigger picture, but we do it on a micro level, depending on what people are looking for and how it fits in. But it is, you are absolutely correct. It is an easy way of dealing with it to say, okay, let the zoning board handle that, you know?
And when you were there, and then I was there, we would fight it as an issue that shouldn't be come before the board, and sometimes they agreed and sometimes they didn't.
George, it's more than that. It's the building commissioner.
He's there too.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. We would say, well, you have a professional and trained building commissioner. Why do we have to be making these kind of decisions? I'm really not sure how to answer that. It all depends. But I mean, I have perfect confidence in most town officials, and this building commissioner and this predecessor were crackerjack people. So, you know, you can't, the way the system works is we're not really allowed to defer to the building commissioner, although I see the board with increasing frequency ask the building commissioner what his position is on something, and he is able to, with confidence, allow us to figure it out ourselves, which isn't always necessary, in my opinion, because he knows better than ever anybody on the ground what the effect of a decision would be.
It may all be moot with the sewers coming downtown anyway, but, you know.
So just for the record, I didn't object to it coming here with the same strenuousness that Mr. Mulligan does. I understand that there was why us, but the issue as I understood it, perhaps in my naivete, was the significance of the deviation. And nobody was prepared to declare that for us.
No.
And so it became a determination in our best understanding of what that impact might be. And in some people's view, it was de minimis, and in other people's view, it had value or was precedent-setting or whatever. And I don't think it's that likely to appear here again.
It may not, but the problem was that instead of having to deal with the standards imposed by a long-standing body of law for variances, Mr. Mulligan suggests, and I agree completely, there was another way of dealing. If it's going to be here that we need to make findings, there should have been standards that we could have dealt with which were much more appropriate for that kind of question. And that's where we went this way.
I grant you that.
That was, and that's where somehow or other that was bootstrapped into the zoning bylaw without standards. And I've asked for that periodically. I've asked the task force, I say, you gotta look at this kind of carefully, because I have members of the board members, or there are members of the zoning board who come from all different angles, and it's thorough, and you need to be able to set forth what, if you can, set forth what you expect the zoning board of appeals to consider as appropriate. Otherwise, we're going to, they'll either be struggling or making things up as we go along. And if you want that, fine. You could trust us with that. That's okay. We know how to do that too. But the importance of standards in a zoning bylaw is critical, because we rotate. I mean, the individuals here rotate, even though we come from different points of view.
Can I ask him another procedural question? Is Mr. Ford gonna come back with that or is that case gonna come back? And I only ask because out of courtesy to these people who got continued, if we bring that case back and it takes a bunch of time, I wonder what our pleasure will be.
I have no idea. I have
You
no.
don't hear from
I
Michael?
know, and I ordinarily don't. I mean, we're really good about not, keeping things right.
I had thought that
I-
they might be
I
here
expected
tonight.
that he would fix it, and he would come back and say, it's a done deal, so this is it. That's what he's done in the past.
They were more
Not
upset,
gonna Get a done deal out of it.
they were more upset that David Little hadn't told them than they were than anybody else. David Little's in the soup, not us.
I suppose I spoke too much. And
No,
that was the reaction.
I'm sorry, I have people that I,
Very well,
Stuck on
sure.
forms.
Then we can adjourn anytime
Yeah,
you like.
standing vote.
Okay.
Be well, Mr. Warren, enjoy
Okay.
the 4th.
I'll try, you too, thank you.
But don't
Okay.
fly.
As much fun as this is, I'm gonna take my leave as well.
All right, very well. Then we will adjourn.
Adjourn.